Welcome to HAG Chat. You start early, don't you? Really
I do.
early. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm an early bird, especially in this weather.
Yeah, you have to be the heat.
Yeah,
I get up at 6:30, walk the dog, start work around 8, but it's having to get earlier and earlier in this heat.
yeah, yeah. It's just too much, too much. We're not used to it. The UK, it
No,
should be snowing.
exactly. Ah, and how do you get yourself going in the morning? Dangerous question, I'll clarify. Do you go tea, coffee, soda water?
Well, I'm sort of coffee all the way. I drink a lot of coffee. I drink far too much coffee.
Right.
Far too much
Yeah.
coffee.
I'm technically off coffee, except for, well, I'm on it today because I'm exhausted. So if you see me just start headbutting the wall, it's because I've had too much coffee. And
I'm.
I've got a little pot of tea as well. So like, if you're going to fall off the wagon, do it in a glorious way. That's what I say.
Absolutely. Well, I'm teetotal for now. So,
Yep. Yeah, it's the caffeine that's a real issue for me,
yeah,
but we'll see how it goes. You've been a horror author for quite some time now, published over 100 books.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
What kick-started this process? Was there a book or a film that made you realize I'm going to become a horror author?
Um, not really. I've always been into writing. Um, I was writing when I was at school, and I kicked it in the head to become a heavy metal guitarist,
Nice.
deciding that my art was then going to be in music. So I did that for some time. Um, I did that for a long time. Uh, I've been there, done that sort of fashion, and when I realised that, you're not going to make it big, and it was taking up far too much of my time to do that and have a 9 to 5 job, because you're finishing work at 5 o'clock on a Friday night and almost literally changing your clothes in a van to get to a gig, and then it comes to Sunday and you're just dead from the neck down. Um, Anyway, I've completely got off the subject of writing. Um, so yeah, I did that. I did that for a while, and after I gave that up, I went back to doing some writing, and I've tried my hand at everything. I've written all sorts of things. I've written fantasy and thrillers and erotica and everything. I've tried everything, but horror was what stuck, and yeah. So yeah, I started writing horror, um, and I decided, because I spent a while chasing the market and writing what was popular, and that just doesn't work. You've got to be a special kind of person to do that, and I'm not special. So I chucked
You are
comedy in. I
special.
thought, oh, thank you. I chucked comedy in, because I've got a twisted sense of humour, and it just hit. As soon as I released my first book, Jane Doe, uh, I wasn't on social media. I did no marketing. I didn't have a Facebook account or anything, and um, I released it, and it sold 35 copies in the first month, and I was just like, "What the hell?" And yeah, it's stuck. It's been there ever since. My fourth book, which I was releasing four weekly, so I was releasing a book every month. My fourth book was a book called Sick Fck, starring Alex Cole, and I'm still writing that series now, 6, 7 years later. So yeah, that's how it all came about. And I mean, I've been a horror fan since as long as I can remember. I remember putting A Nightmare on Elm Street on and then having to turn it off because it was too scary for my little eyes.
Oh,
Um, and now it's one of my favorite films. So yeah, no, I've always been into horror. And I think my one of my earliest books was The Little Vampire by Angela Sommer Bodenberg, which is horror, even if it is
yeah.
for babies. I've still got the books downstairs and then in my dining room. So yeah, Yeah, always been into horror.
There are so many children's books that are horror. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is horror.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
slasher. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Last time I spoke to you, that was with the Horror Writers Association, but I read Cult, and that was my introduction to Ash, because I don't like to interview anyone until I've read at least one of their books. Since then, I've been hoovering up your collection with a troublesome level. One of the things I really like is because you write a lot of novellas, you can fit in 2 to 3 of those novellas in between novels. So they're almost like a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
You get through this big chunky book, and then you're like, right, now I'm going to go back, because the way you're so prolific, you will have released at least 2 to 3 books by the time I finished one of these big chunky novels. And you mentioned Sick Fck earlier, and that was my introduction. I'm on your Patreon, and so I got Sick Fck 5, I think it was. And then I was like, right, go back to the original, get the first one, because I wanted to understand the complex narrative structure of Alex as he goes around his business. Read the first one and was absolutely hooked. When you come up with these books like Smalls, Sick Fuck, or Jane Doe, do you start with the characters or do you start with the setting?
I don't really. It sort of depends. I mean, with Sick Fuck, I had this idea for this private investigator who would just literally do anything for money. Um, and I'd I'd said to myself that I wouldn't do anything gross with kids, and then the first thing he does is kill a kid. And the sort of for something like Alex Cole and the Seven Smalls, they write themselves. Once the character is there, and you've got Alex Cole as a person, the stories just write themselves. As you can start anything, you can start with him eating a bag of crisps, and within 10,000 words, he's knee deep in people's guts. Um, I tend to sort of vaguely plot in my head for my shorter works. So for the novellas, plot comes first, um, and then character and settings. I tend to write in a fictionalized version of the town I live in. So the actual setting is a town called Birchingate for nearly everything I've written. Um, Even if it's not mentioned, it's probably set in Birchingate. Which if you live around here, you can spot the places. I've had people come up to me on Instagram and go, "Is this set around this place?" And I'm like, "Yeah, actually, yeah." They're just like, "I can see what you're talking about from my window," and I just had to ask. So setting for me is second nature. The only thing I have to be careful of is not to skip over too much of it because it's just so second nature to me to go, well, that's obviously there that I forget to tell the reader what what's around the corner. But yeah, no, I start with the plot and the characters drag themselves along most of the time. And then setting is just where I live.
Nicely done. Occasionally, I vary up my settings because I think I've depopulated Sherwood Forest several times in my more medieval stories. So I'll maybe do some in the Forest of Dean and spread around the murder. I think creating a fictionalized town is such a great idea because it seems fairer on the people in real towns. My first story I wrote was set in Hastings, and I had them as cannibals. And see, I like Hastings, and I thought this was a bit unfair on the people there. So I created a fictional version of Hastings, which I use a lot of my stories in. So it's grounded in reality, but no one's going to get offended when I use their house,
No.
which I have done. And you said that you start off with a rough idea for the plot for your novellas. How much planning goes into your books?
Well, for anything under 10,000 words, um, none. I've got an idea about what the story is going to be about. I'm writing a short story at the moment that is about an evil forest, And I've started writing, and that's the only thing I've got in my head. I've got no characters, nothing. I'm an evil forest. And I'll start writing, and I'll see where the story will take me. And sometimes it doesn't take me anywhere, and I end up writing 4,000 or 5,000 words and just chucking them in the bin. For a novella, I generally know roughly the the timeline. I've got a sort of a line in my head about what's going to happen and where it's going to go. And it quite often goes off the rails in the middle. I'll completely write something else. But I know roughly what I'm doing. For a novel, I usually have it planned down to chapters. So I will know what's going to happen in every chapter as it happens. And I will attempt my very best attempt to stick with it. Otherwise, I get halfway through a book and I've written 30 or 40,000 words and I just hit a wall and go, I don't know where this book's going now. And my characters have shut up and everyone's dead and I'm lost. And I learnt my lesson many years ago. If I'm writing novel length, I plot it down to almost to the scene. I know what's going to happen in every chapter. I know who's doing what, where everything's going to happen, what happens at the end, who's going to live, who's going to die. Which, yeah, the shorter the work gets, the vaguer it becomes.
See, I had the opposite problem when I wrote Deus Vult. I got to the end of the book and I realized nobody had died, which would have been a terrible, terrible horror book. So I then had to go back and then start killing off people throughout the book so that it got to the final scene with the final girl who was actually a big, chunky guy, but then the times. So what does your writing routine look like? Because you are so prolific.
Well, when I'm at full speed, I'll get up at 6 and I'll start work at 7, and I treat it like a proper job. So I will start work at 7, and I'll immediately start writing, and I can write without issue. Lots of people sit down and have to get themselves into a headspace, and before I've thought about what I'm doing, I'm writing, and by 9 o'clock I've put down 4,000 to 5,000 words, which for a reader, 4,000 to 5,000 words is somewhere between 7 and 10% of a novel. So I can write a novel in a week if I put my mind to it. Then hit 9 o'clock and pens down, and after that, I've always got editing. My first drafts are good and clean,
Why
and
not?
they're solid. I could give my first draft to an editor, and go, there you go, edit this for me. It's a mess from a grammatical point of view and spelling and such. But I write very cleanly. My sentence structure is always there. And my plot is always coherent. I don't make a mess in my first draft to the point where I need to rewrite big sections of the book. But consequently, because I write so much so quickly, I have a lot of editing to do. I've currently got 3 novels in editing and a novella and some short stories. And I hate editing. Yeah,
I think everybody does.
I just can't. And then also I do all of my own cover work and formatting, but I also do formatting for other people and publishing houses, and I do covers for other people and publishing houses. So what I tend to do is I'll get all of my own creative work done first, then I'll move on to the stuff I don't want to do. Then I have my lunch between 10:30 and 11 o'clock usually, and then after that, it's down to doing my stuff for other people and my cover work, and the stuff where it's not creative from my own mind. I can just put a film on in the background and format a book. I haven't got to
That would
think about it.
intensity.
I haven't got to create anything. I can just do it in a almost robotic fashion, And then the same with the book covers. If I'm doing a book cover for somebody else, once the mock is done, it's just a lot of cutting out pictures and creating collages and that sort of thing, which doesn't take any thinking about. It just takes the skill to do it. So
Yeah.
I do all of that after I've had my lunch, and if it's not too hot. I won't be doing any of that after lunch today. It's too hot.
I have a similar sort of routine for me because I am limited in the amount of caffeine I can use, in that I'm not supposed to have any, but I sort of do. I have my caffeine in the morning, and then after lunchtime, I have no more caffeine, which means I'm a useless sack of just potatoes for the rest of the day, which is fine for doing marketing stuff or updating, for doing my editing, and for doing sort of the admin side of the job, which is my least favorite stuff. But for writing, I know I'm at my best after I've finished walking the dog, I've had my breakfast, couple of poached eggs on toast normally, and then I get my coffee, I get my pot of tea, I sit down and I get all my words done before 12 normally. And in the British Horror Authors Guild, we have a writing group. And so we do sprints during the day, and there's normally one or two of us that are just typing together, and then we sort of compete over word count. I always lose, so feel free to not join because I already get humiliated. But, it's having people there does help with encouragement, and also just so you can scream that things aren't working when they're not working. Also, you shared wins and all of that. But that is my writing routine, and mostly do short stories and novellas. But you've done everything. You've done all the forms. You've done novels, short stories, novellas, collected works. Do you find that one form comes more naturally to you?
Well, if you'd asked me that 6 months ago, I probably would say that novellas were definitely my bag. At the moment, I'm absolutely digging, loving writing the short stories. It sort of depends on what I'm working on. I I like writing a novel, but I don't know. I get halfway through and I get tired of working the same characters and the same stuff every day. Um, so it's not my preference to write over about 40,000 words. I've got a couple of novels that are 70 or 80,000 words, and they were hard. They were hard to write, and they're hard to plot, and they're hard to keep interesting, um, especially in the more extreme horror side. Um, in order to just keep it extreme horror, it's a lot to get up to 70 or 80,000 words. Um, I like writing the shorter stuff. I do enjoy writing a short novel, 40,000 words, 50,000 words, because it's big enough for me to get my teeth into, but not too big for me, and for me to struggle with it. But at the moment, I'm loving writing these short stories. I've got other things that I need to be writing. I keep finding myself going, "Oh, I'll just do that another day." And I've started writing the new Sick Fck book, and I'm just like, "Oh, no, I'll do that another day. I want to write another couple of short stories."
We're waiting on that book, Ash.
I know, I know. I know what the plot is and everything. Um, I just haven't got to it yet. I'm getting my absolute horror series done until I've done enough of that, and then I'll do something else for a little while. But I think I'll probably come back to the absolute horror series because I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I do like the fact that sometimes you can just bang out a story in a day with a short story, and then it's done. You don't have to worry about waking up the next morning and then getting yourself back into the heads of
Yeah,
the various characters. And so I'm with you with that, absolutely. And I've been loving your absolute horror series,
thank you.
and the fact that there is comes out so quickly as well. It's brilliant. I think your Patreon is probably the best value for money because you just get so many stories out there. It's
Well,
brilliant. I really, really enjoy it. And when you are doing a long series like Alex Cole and Sick Fuck, and you're on number 9 now,
yeah.
you're doing 10?
Oh,
Or
there's definitely going to be at least 20 of them. I,
right. Do you plot the story arcs in advance? Do you have like an overarching huge whiteboard?
No, no, not at all. Not at all. I've got a 4 book series, which is a post-apocalyptic story, and I didn't even plot that, and that's got a start and finish. Um, for the vast majority of my long running stuff, it's more like a TV show. It's Monster of the Week. Um, there's no overarching storyline. Um, So if you think of Alex Cole as a cross between, I don't know, Inspector Morse and Lovecraft, um,
You
it's
can't compare Alex Cole to Inspector Morse.
uh, it's it's like that. It's literally just as long as Alex Cole's got all of his limbs at the end of the story, then it doesn't really matter what I do. They're unconnected. You don't have to read them in order or anything like that. In I did the novel Cold Case Corpse because I was determined to write an Alex Cole novel. And Cold Case Corpse, when you actually sit and read it, is actually just 3 novellas stuck together because I couldn't write 60,000 words of Alex Cole being Alex Cole without a break. He picks up a dog in that. He ends up with a dog at the end of the story. That dog is never mentioned anywhere else. Um, and I even write some of that stuff in where in one of my recent ones I put he's sitting in his car and he wonders if he used to smoke because I couldn't remember if I had him as a smoker at the beginning of the series, and I knew that I hadn't mentioned him smoking in at least 5 books, so I just went, he forgot if he was a smoker or not. No, there's no plotting. The Seven Small series, they're all about different members of the family. They do recur, but there's again no overarching storyline. No, I try to avoid that as much as possible because that involves me actually thinking about stuff and sticking to a routine. I'm not very good at sticking to a routine.
Bernard Cornwell, when he wrote the Sharp series, the first 3 books, Sharp has got long, raven black, rakish hair. And then he saw Sean Bean, and it was like, oh, that's better. So he just changes. For the rest of the books onwards, he's Sean Bean. Talking about Alex Cole again, poor Colin Dexter, he is going to leave a poor review for this interview. So Alex is hilarious, and you balance truly extreme horror with just being really funny. There are times I've been reading it and I felt guilty for laughing. How do you find that balance in your work?
Um, it comes very naturally to me. I've got a very dark sense of humor. Um, and when you take horror to such an extreme level, the absurdity is just there. You can't help but laugh at some of it, even when it's not being funny. So just slapping the humor on top is just so second nature to me. The thing with Alex Cole and extreme horror is it's not scary. Alex Cole is not a scary book. Um, and it's just laughably extreme horror situations. Um, I've written serious books. I've written some serious subject matter, and those books are not funny. They may have a bit of humour in them, but Alex Cole is just front cover to back cover of extreme horror comedy. And it's a very different beast than taking putting a joke into something with serious subject matter. Um, Alex Cole can never be and should never be taken seriously, which means adding the humour in is so easy. Putting humour into some of my other books, I've got books about young girls, sort of 14, 15-year-olds being put into situations where they're being trafficked or into sexual assault and things like that. And I don't put jokes in there. That's not funny.
No.
And trying to leave a joke into that isn't going to work. but when you've got a, a naked um, a naked Alex Cole tied to a bed, who's got two priests standing over him, to exorcise a demon from him, and he's got an erection, it's really easy to write a joke.
Yeah, I don't want to introduce spoilers, but when I was reading Sick Fck series, a very classic villain appears, and I thought, oh, you poor thing. This is not going to be dignified. You're not going to have a good time here. This is not going to be what we're expecting. And yes, very enjoyable.
Yeah, I've put a lot of classic monsters, classic characters. Yeah, I like to throw them in and give them a new lease of life. I like to think of it as my way of giving back to the literary community.
You definitely subvert them. I wonder what they would think if Bram Stoker read the latest Alex Cole and thought, this is what I hope people will be doing with my work.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure he'd be very impressed.
Yeah. Why do you think that characters like Alex Cole, and I will stop picking on this one person, but obviously this Sick Fuck series is one of my favorites, because he is morally appalling. In fact, does he have morals to be appalling? But he's so compelling. Why do you think that we are attracted to these morally bankrupt characters?
Um, I think in the case of something like Sick Fuck series and the Seven Smalls, is because within the humour, they are just likable. You can see yourself doing what they do in this fictional world where you're absolutely invulnerable and it doesn't really matter what happens and you can fall off a building but you'll be fine. Um, I think we all sit there and go, "Yep, that's how I'd behave if nothing bad could happen to me." Um, and it's just freeing to be able to laugh at someone who's doing the right thing in the worst possible way.
Do you think there's any limits to Alex Cole? Is there anything he
Um,
wouldn't do,
I don't
or
think
does
there's
that
much he
depend?
hasn't done.
I
Um,
think you might be right.
uh, Again, it comes. I I try not to make him a villain. He's not the bad guy. It's really hard to say that when in his first book he cut a small child in half. Um, but he's not the bad guy. He's always the good guy, and he's always trying to do the right thing as long as it pays. And it always works out for most people.
Oh, does it? I mean, he has saved the world on several occasions,
He saves the
uh,
world a lot.
but in the worst possible way.
Well, yeah, and I mean there was the second coming of Christ, of course.
A very literal version of that, yep. Uh, it reminds me a bit of Resident Alien. Have you watched that TV series?
I've not. I have heard of it.
Oh, check it out. Alan Tudyk plays an alien, and he has many advantages being an alien. And because he has these advantages, he does a lot of things that are morally questionable because he can get away with it, and because there's a reward at the end of it. So it's one of those things. He's morally questionable, but he knows what he wants, and usually it's pizza. And he's not going to let anything get in the way of that because there's no consequences for him. And I think in worlds like that, you can get some really entertaining characters.
Yeah,
And it does make you ask questions like, how far would I go for money, for love, for pizza,
yeah, absolutely.
um, if I could get away with it,
Yes.
which is terrifyingly introspective. So we'll move on. Have you ever written anything and then gone, hell no, that's too far, I'm not publishing it? Do you admit that on camera?
Actually, I haven't. I haven't. I've questioned myself very briefly right at the start. My line in the sand was, "I won't kill children." And then by the end of Jane Doe, my first book, I've got a car boot full of dead bodies of children. And I was just like, well, that didn't work out for me. But you read my stuff, and my work doesn't have anywhere near what other people are writing. I write in the extreme horror and the splatterpunk space, but I don't do gross really. I write plot driven stuff. There are so many people that write about fetal matter and just goo. And I don't write about goo. I don't try and turn people's stomach. I try to make them look away from the page. But in the horror sphere these days, I think I'm a little old fashioned, and I thought that when I wrote Jane Doe that I was really pushing boundaries. I thought, oh, people are going to be shocked by this. And then I became a part of the extreme horror space, and I realised that I'm writing for children. So no, I don't really, because my writing is not. It doesn't go there. I've written sexual assault scenes, but I'm always pretty classy about it. um, I don't take any glee in it. I don't write to shock people. If it's a part of the story, in my book Unbound, the male protagonist, the inciting incident is he's sexually assaulted in an alleyway by a gang of men. There is no glee to that. There are no jokes in it there. There are some jokes in it later when he raises a demon to take revenge on these guys. But no, I don't. I'm always pretty careful with the way I frame the very worst of the worst. And I certainly don't go anywhere near the places some other people go. So I don't worry too much about it.
I think my personal descriptions of gore have definitely improved since hoovering my way through your back catalogue. I've been accused of writing cozy horror in my time, which is a term that I don't enjoy. But my mother reads my work, and I told her at the beginning, I don't recommend this, Mother. It's horror. It's not your genre, which is my polite way of saying it's not for you. But she is proud author, librarian, mother. So she dutifully reads everything, and I have had phone calls saying, I am disgusted to think that you came out of me, and how you had that in your mind is abhorrent to me, which normally means it's going to do quite well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also it's like, yep, sorry, Mother. No, I apologize. I did say don't read it, but you went ahead and read it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, my parents don't read me, unsurprisingly.
You write both extreme horror and splatterpunk. What do you think is the most misunderstood part whenever you tell someone you're an extreme horror writer or splatterpunk?
Well, for a start, people assume splatterpunk means something it doesn't, which is a huge problem and an ongoing problem, because even people who write in the extreme horror genre will use the term splatterpunk to mean something that's gross and disgusting and full of gore, and that's got nothing to do with it. Splatterpunk is about transgressive fiction. It's about pushing boundaries that are outside of societal norms. So splatterpunk doesn't even need to be horror. And most of the time, it's horror, because if you're going to call something splatterpunk, people are going to assume it's horror. I, I've been accused of writing transgressive fiction on occasion, but it's a problem. People assume it means something it doesn't, and I'm guilty of it myself with extreme horror. I've read some mainstream horror, some traditionally published mainstream horror that I would far consider to be extreme horror. And these days, you've only got to look at the way movies are coming out, and the the boundaries now are being pushed so much further that what what people would consider to be extreme horror, what young people consider to be extreme horror now, has got nothing compared to what older people consider to be extreme horror. I've written books, and I've seen the reviews on places like YouTube, and they've gone, "This isn't a horror book. This is barely scratching the surface." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" Uh, it's such an overused term, um, and a misused. They're all it's all misused. Um, People assume that my writing will be far worse than it is, but then if you read other people who are lumped in with me in the extreme horror category, some of them would turn anyone's stomach. Um, I've read books by other authors where I've just skipped over sections because I just don't want to read it. I just it's not for me. If it's got nothing to do with the plot, it's generally just there for the sake of shock, and it's at that point it becomes gross out, and
Yeah.
that's not what I'm looking for. I want something to scare me, and I try to keep my books in a sphere where you will be compelled to find out what happens, not just see if you can finish it for the sake of finishing it. And I think that's where a lot of people will take a misconstrue of extreme horror. They'll assume that everything that's written in extreme horror is there to be stomached, and it's not. It should still be about the plot.
You see this in a lot of classic literature, which was deemed as classic horror. But if it was released today, it would probably be extreme horror or splatterpunk. Richard Lehman, The Island, James Herbert, The Fog. There's a gym teacher that gets infected by the fog, and then his whole class erupts into an orgy. Stephen King in It, I think they've removed it now, but crucial to the plot was when they all had to have an orgy to become adults.
Crucial. Yep.
Yep, they skipped that in the movie version for
Yep.
reasons. James Herbert again, The Rat. That was very, very extreme,
Yeah.
but compelling. I read that at a very young age. So I think sometimes it's because the labels have been created later on in time. And also, I think society changes
It does.
and
It does.
viewpoints change. Things that were acceptable become less acceptable, and vice versa. What would you say to a new horror author who's said, I'm going to write extreme horror, and they've never written anything before?
As long as you're well enough read, it shouldn't be a problem. But again, I keep the plot. It should be about the plot, not just the going from scene to scene of extreme whatever you're going to do. I mean, you can have extreme violence or extreme gore or whatever, but you've got to put a plot in it. It needs to be something to be read, not something to be endured. Um, so yeah, put the plot in. Learn how to plot. Read a bit more widely. If you're only reading extreme horror, particularly in the indie sphere, try reading some stuff outside of that, and learn how to plot a book.
I think reading is key to it for any writer in any genre, and knowing different genres is really useful. I had an interview with Matter Haggis Burridge. Forgive me, Matter. But when I was talking to him, he writes very prolific horror. And one of the things that he learned from was a book. It's called Will Write for Shoes, and it's about writing chick lit. And he picked up the book because he thought, well, these authors, they're so prolific. They churn out so many books. There's got to be something to that. And so he sort of went through it and read through it and developed his own ways of writing fast. And so you can learn from all sorts of different genres,
Absolutely.
different things. So we get to the online community, and horror has got a very strong, very fractious online community. It's very easy to lose your way in there. How do you handle using the community to help you write, publish, or promote your work?
Uh, yeah. Um, the author community can be very good. The horror community can be very broken. There are groups on social media who are there to help authors regardless of genre. There's the SIA, it's the self-publishing group. There's 20 books to 50K. They're all there on social media to discuss how to write, what to write, and beyond that, how to publish, because publishing itself is a whole minefield. Um, and everything in between, and getting an agent and all of that. There are groups on Facebook that specialize in splatterpunk and extreme horror. That it's a volatile community, and there are people that will fight all the time. And it can make it very, very difficult. For me, I'm creating my own space on social media, and I try to stay as far away from the volatile stuff as I can. I don't need to fight with other people online. It doesn't do my mental health any good. And once my mental health takes a battering, then my creativity, that's gone. And then I'm useless because I can't do anything. And particularly if you're actually doing it as a business, it's incredibly important you keep your own space very safe with the people that you trust within it, to maintain your ability to be able to create. Because creating when you feel terrible just isn't going to happen. Anything you create probably will be awful anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, on social media, the answers are all there, but you need to pick your spaces to be in, and pick your fights, if you'll forgive the term. Um, it's it can be great. Social media is a fantastic thing, but equally it can be terrible. So yeah, create your own space and invite people into that space. Don't just immediately assume that the best thing to do is join somebody else's space, because you might find yourself in a space you don't want to be in.
And don't do drive-by linking.
Yeah, yeah. Don't drop links for anything everywhere.
If you find a community that fits you and you integrate yourself with that community, you'll have a better time.
Yes, definitely.
When we had a previous interview, one of the pieces of advice that you gave that stuck with me was avoid the Facebook feed. Don't use the feed.
Yeah,
Go to the groups directly. If you go into the feed, you will be lost.
yeah.
It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I think that kind of sums up social media.
Yes, yes, it does. It does. Yeah.
And so we're talking about social media. What was the hardest part of building your readership?
Uh, Believing in myself enough to put myself out there. Um, I I've got a Patreon, and I should have had a Patreon 5 years ago, and I didn't have a Patreon 5 years ago because I sat there and went, "Whoever's going to support me? I'm just putting my books out and hoping for the best." You need to believe in yourself and create your space. Back to creating your space. Create your Patreon, create your page, and the readers will find you if you're in that space. Um, Trying to force yourself into other spaces isn't always going to work. And once you get kicked back a few times, you're going to start to believe that no, this isn't the right thing for me. And it is the right thing for you, but you just need to create that space and believe in yourself enough to be on social media as the person that you want to be, and not necessarily the person that society in your real life wants you to be. I've got a history in business management and IT, and what my business management head tells me is not the same as what I need to be when I'm online as an extreme horror author. So you need to carve out that space and believe that you are enough to fill that space on social media, and people will come to you and be your friend and support you, but you need to believe in yourself.
It was your Patreon that inspired me to go into Substack Premium, which is another sort of paid tier. And yeah, that has helped hugely. It's not just the fact that I get a income from it, it's the continuity of income, because writing is a seasonal job. And when the weather's good or when the weather is too hot, people don't read books. And so your income dwindles. But having this baseline income just smooths out the edges, and it really does help. And I never, like you said, I never had the confidence to do it. And then I saw yours and I thought, well, I'll give it a go. And it has worked. It's not Stephen King money, but it helps. It really does.
Absolutely.
If someone approached you and said, I'm thinking of setting up a Patreon, what advice would you give them?
Uh, Create your tiers carefully, because once you've created your tiers and people have joined your Patreon, it's not that simple to change them.
Mm.
People have said to me, "Oh, add in more tiers," and I'm like, "Well, I've got people that are on tiers that are going to look at that and go, well, I didn't want to be on this tier, I want to be on that tier," and you create your tiers carefully and be consistent, even when you haven't got lots of people supporting you. Um, it's very easy to go, well, I've created my Patreon, I've created my tiers. Now I'm going to wait for people to join before I post anything on Patreon. But people will look at your Patreon and go, you don't post anything, and not join. And they get access to all the things that you've already posted. So it's a little bit like shouting into a void at the very beginning. The other thing, sort of half connected, is start a mailing list. You've got to have a mailing list. Create a mailing list, even if you don't use it very often, because when you've got a book that comes out, especially if you're only releasing 1 or 2 books a year, when you've got a book that comes out, sending out an advert to 1,000 people that are interested will do a wonder of good for your pre-orders or your sales or getting the word out there. Sorry, completely ignored your question, moved on to mailing list.
No, but mailing lists is a huge part of your readership.
Yeah.
And the other
So
thing is, with social media, algorithms can change, but the mailing list, you've got that data, and every single person is going to get your message,
yeah,
regardless.
yeah. So yeah, keep your Patreon going, regardless of how currently popular it is. It will become popular, and in my experience, people don't join and leave and join and leave. Once people join and they like your content, they'll stay, and it is a consistent income.
Yeah. And offering a discount for annual membership will also help with that continuity.
Definitely.
So, with your cover design, a lot of authors have fallen into the trap of using AI for covers. And the usual excuse we hear is it's really expensive and I have no money. And I have a lot of sympathy with authors who have no money. We've all been there. Do you have any advice for someone who has a low income and is looking for a cover?
Yeah, I mean, there are many places you can go and buy a pre-made cover for next to nothing. There are sites where you can get a cover for $20. And $20 is really nothing. It's 2 or 3 cups of coffee down in Starbucks. If you approach a cover artist who does covers like I do and say, I'm absolutely broke and I need something and I've got $15, can you help me? You'll probably find most cover artists are going to go, yeah, no problem. But if you approach someone who does $400 covers and nothing else, yeah, okay, they're probably going to go, no, I'm sorry, I'm too busy. But if you approach someone within the community, you'll find somebody who'll be able to help you or point you in the direction of pre-made covers. There are lots and lots of people making pre-made covers that are very, very affordable. So that's certainly in the direction that I would be looking. The other alternative is to do a little bit of research and create your own cover. You can create a cover with a single stock image, quite a lot, not most, but a lot of my covers are single stock images that I've just applied some careful coloration and changes to and been very selective with my font choice. And you can make a nice cover with a single image for a lot of my very short work where I've released a free book on my mailing list. For example, I've done a free story at Christmas. It's got a cover. Well, I'm not going to spend 5 hours making a cover for a 500-word story that I'm sending out for free, but just a carefully selected stock image and some nice text over the top. It will do you wonders. And you can go to YouTube and learn how to do all of that, and it's free.
One of the places that I used was a pre-made covers site called Book Cover Zone, and it cost me $50, and this was for Tales of the Macabre Volume 1. That was a one-off payment, and I was able to use the same cover for the whole series. Canva, you can change the color.
Yep.
So you can say, take the red, make it blue. And this has continued for the whole series, which is my best-selling series. And it's where a good, I would say, 85% of my income comes from. I did, when I first started out, I had a savings bucket and I didn't know what to do with it. And I used a company that provided the cover for my novel, Nesta Lynch. I spent nearly $1,000 on it and nobody bought the book. So you don't need to spend a ton of cash to get a good result. I also, with my shorter work, do make my own covers for them, and I use Canva for that. And I use the stock images that are in Canva Premium. I think it's like $8 a month or something. It doesn't break the bank. You can cancel your subscription after you've made the cover, or, I mean, if you're doing a lot of stories, you just keep it rolling. Do you have any recommendations for software or stock image libraries?
You want to be very careful of free stock image libraries. Places like Pixabay will give you free stock images, but the copyright usage on them isn't always 100% correct. So you might find a lovely picture of a person, you'll go and put them on a book cover, and then that person will contact you and go, how dare you put me on your book cover? And they can sue you for it. So you want to be careful using free stock image sites. I use Deposit Photos, and I always purchase during Black Friday, where you can buy 100 images for $39, so about £30. And I'll buy a couple of those, and that'll do me for the whole year. Bearing in mind that I'm doing covers for other people as well. And I use Photoshop, but if you don't want to go and buy Photoshop, which I completely understand, you can use GIMP, which is free and very similar to Photoshop, to my understanding. It's got a steep learning curve, but then so's Photoshop. Canva is something that I've seen many people using, and it's got, I believe, all of the templates and such to create book covers. So you've got less to think about. I mean, in Photoshop, yeah, it's fine, but you need to know how big a template needs to be and how big your book cover needs to be, and your ratios and dots per inch and all of that. Yeah, Canva's a good start, and Deposit Photos, I would go with a reputable stock photo site rather than some of the free ones. There are a couple of free ones out and about that are very good, but I couldn't name them off the top of my head.
Right. I was slightly concerned about you mentioning people suing if you accidentally use their image, as there's one of my friends who's suitably ghoulish, and I've definitely used his image on several occasions. So I'll just have to buy him off with scotch for the rest of my life, I guess.
No, that'll be all right. Yeah.
So a lot of authors out there in the world have started using AI for covers and for writing. What do they risk losing when they use AI?
Um, um, I'm I, I'm very averse to AI, so I will make sure I pick my phrasing carefully here. AI is in its infancy. It's getting better as a tool. I'm sure people are using it in ways that I don't know because I won't use it at all. Um, the issues I see in the long term come from the copyright that you no longer have control over. Um, Regardless of the legal and moral implications of the way that AI has been trained to do what it does, which is a completely separate issue. From what from how I understand it at the moment, if you create an image in AI, that image cannot be copywritten because AI has created it, not you, and you've purchased no copyright for it. Which means that your book cover, for example, you've got no legal right to say that's my book cover. Somebody else can take that book cover and put it on their book. And you've got no comeback on that. At the moment, if someone took one of my book covers and put it on their book, I could take them to court over it and say you've used the image that I've created. It's my copyright, it's my intellectual property. Um, that I can't see how that doesn't apply to books that are written using AI as well, which means you can pour your heart and soul into creating the prompts that create an AI book, but once the book has been outputted, you don't own it. It's it's not your intellectual property. So if it's not your intellectual property, you can't copyright it. And I can see that causing a problem long term. When you publish a book on Amazon, one of the things that you have to do is say whether you've used AI in the creation of your cover or your internal or not. And at the moment, there is absolutely no reason for that, that it doesn't do anything. But should the law change and AI internal, the written word of AI is not copyrightable, or they decide that it has broken copyright law, then your books can disappear from out from under you. And Amazon could go, well, we're not going to sell that anymore because it's been legally proven in the court of law that a book written with AI is, has been stolen. It's been it's used somebody else's words, so you can't have that. Or your book cover is no longer applicable and copywritten or whatever. And I can see that long term, AI created art will become legally a problem. And suddenly, if you've written 40 books using AI, you might suddenly find that your library's empty and your income's just gone overnight.
And also, should point out, if you lie to Amazon and don't tick the box when you have used AI, Amazon can just close your account.
If
And
you
if you
lie to
do that,
Amazon, yeah, if you lie to
you
Amazon about anything, they'll close your account.
yeah, and then you're done.
Yeah,
It's very hard to make money as an author, and it is almost impossible to make money without Amazon, as much as I have a love-hate relationship with them.
absolutely.
Um,
They are the market leader, the biggest bookstore in the world.
yeah, I was actually contacted as part of the Anthropic court case because they used Tales of the Macabre 1 to 4 as part of the training material. And they said, you could be eligible for $9,000 as compensation. I thought, that'll do. That will go a long way to making me feel better about this whole theft thing.
Yep.
And so I said, oh, okay. And they said, oh, you're English. I was like, yep, yes. And they said, no, you will get an apology from Anthropic, but only US citizens who have registered with the US registry get the payout. And I was like, that makes things worse somehow.
Yep. No, I know that feeling.
Talking about different formats, moving away from the whole, well, actually, AI is part of this. Several of your books are now available as audiobooks. What did you learn from the process, both commercially but also creatively?
Yeah, but, um, and I've had a long running on off with audiobooks. I completely understand why, but it's very difficult to find a reliable narrator without hiring them and physically paying them.
Mm.
Um, when you've written a book and you want it to become an audiobook, you can go to Audible, and Audible will put you together with a narrator. And if you decide you like each other, you can work together. Um, how that narrator is paid natively, that was they would take 50% of the royalties of the audiobook. So they would read your book into the machine, and then it becomes an audiobook, and then you get 50-50 on the sales, which is fine. However, if your book doesn't sell particularly well or at all, the narrator uh, is down possibly hundreds of hours of work, and they're not receiving any money for it. Um, it's made getting a reliable narrator for your audiobooks very challenging over time. Um, Once you find someone who works for you and with you, then keep hold of them. And yes, AI is now available as a narrator and is free. Um, I don't hold with that. I don't believe that an AI narrator will give you the effect that a human narrator will, aside from any other moral and legal moral and legal implications. I got a I've got a male narrator who I'm working with long term, and I do pay him. I pay him by the hour, um, and I'm still struggling to find a female narrator because I about 50% of my books have got female protagonists, and I would prefer them to be read by a female narrator. Um, and I'm struggling to find a female narrator who isn't taken. Um, I imagine that with the romance genre, most of the narrators they want a female voice or female presenting voice, and I would imagine that's where. And then I say to them, "Will you read this?" Which is full of people's heads being pulled off. And they're just like, "No, no, I don't want to read that." Um, it, it's a different space. And it can earn you some money as a writer. You can earn quite a lot of money doing it for no work. You've already done the work. You've written the book. Um, when you're ready to get your book and give it to a narrator to make, go through it quickly and make sure there aren't any bits in it that don't make any sense that aren't the written word anymore. Because I've done that and I've had my narrators come back to me and go, "What's this? I don't understand this. Why is this here?" Um, One of my narrative tools is to, on occasion, speak directly to the camera, as it were, uh, in my own voice. So, as Ash Ericmore, I will appear in the book in brackets and make a humorous aside. That doesn't work when you've got a narrator because they're looking at it and going, "What?" Because you can't turn it into a voice. So you've got to be careful with what you give them. But yeah, the biggest thing, if you're going to go in that direction, is find a narrator that works for you and keep hold of them with both hands.
I think that's got to be the plot of an extreme horror book. Someone kidnaps a narrator, throws them into their panel van, and then forces them to read all of their Game of Thrones fan fiction.
Don't tempt me.
Yeah. Also, one of the issues with using AI narration is that it's billed at the same price as, for example, using Christopher Lee or any of the other brilliant voice actors out there, you're going to get downvoted. And place names in the UK, AI can't do Wales, AI can't do Cornwall, and AI can't do so many place names in the UK. And especially if you use more exotic names for people, then it's going to struggle.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there is a quality concern as well. I think I would have less of an issue with it if the AI generated narration was free for people who bought an audiobook or a minimal price, like a 99p upgrade or something.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, guys, I know it's rubbish, but it's not going to cost you anything.
Yeah.
Whereas the cost of audiobooks, they are expensive because they require good production hours and a lot of equipment.
Yeah.
So trivializing that does cause issues. Finally, for people who are brand new, they've never read any Ash Ericmore, the poor, poor people, where should they start?
Well, you want to start with Jane Doe and then read them all in order. No. If you want to know what you're getting into, Sick Fck is the best way to start, because that will give you a good overview about how I write and what I write. If you want post-apocalyptic, there's The End of All Things. If you want some more serious stuff, there's more serious stuff there to go and find. But I would recommend heartily starting on Sick Fck 1, which if you go to my website, you can get for free by signing up to the newsletter.
Brilliant. I would also add to that the Summer of Sin anthology, because that is fantastic.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
No worries. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Ash.
Excellent.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.